Welcome everybody. Today we are going to discuss the Ayurvedic art of skin assessment. And this topic is part of our Ayurveda Health Counselor certification program. My name is John Immel. This is what I look like. Now let's talk about different ways of assessing the skin, step by step. This is really going to end up being the meat and potatoes of this lecture. So let's look at skin color first. What does it mean? Well, normal skin color actually varies a lot by ethnicity. The lightness and darkness of the skin is due to the pigment melanin. And people who have both light and dark complexion have melanin. And you say, well, how could both have it if melanin is what makes the skin dark? How can a person with light skin have melanin? And the answer to that is that there are two different types of melanin. There's, and I'm not even going to try, well, I will try. I will try to pronounce these correctly. Eumelanin and pheomelanin. Eumelanin is more of the black and brown hues that you think of with people tanning and people with darker skin tones. And then pheomelanin is more red and yellow hues. And this is predominant in people with paler skin. Now compare the difference between my wife and I going to the beach. I have Italian blood. And Italy is very close to Africa. And so, you know, we're, as Italians, we tan very easily. And of course, because of the latitude, but I also think that there's just a lot of real interracial marrying in the Italian gene pool. And so I go in the sun and I will tan and get very dark pretty easily. And my wife, when she goes out in the sun, she will turn red, even if she's not burnt. So I'm going to just make a wild guess here that she's got the pheomelanin type because her skin is very fair. She almost has like Nordic skin, very white skin, blondish kind of hair, blue eyes, although her hair is not very blonde. And so she doesn't have those dark colors that I tend to have in my skin. She has probably the pheomelanin type. And so here we see an example of these two different skin types right there. The darker hair, the dark brown eyes, the darker skin, and then the pheomelanin type would be blonde or red hair with fairer skin and green eyes or blue eyes. So color variances, this, by the way, does not indicate any pathology, right? This is just normal, natural, genetic, ethnic coloring to the skin, probably adaptive for wherever your ancestors, whatever environment your ancestors lived in, and the degree of their sun exposure, which depends on latitude primarily, but also lifestyle, right? If you're a laborer out in the sun, you're going to have different tan than somebody who is a laborer working at a desk all day. Anyway, color variances beyond your natural genetic melanin skin type point to imbalances, but the genetic ones aren't indicative of an imbalance. Okay? So here we're talking about, we'll start with red or flushed skin. And remember, again, we're not so much talking about skin type here, but a person who has an imbalance making their skin to be more red or flushed than it would normally be. Okay, so that could be a sign of an internal heat condition or pitta, which could be due to any number of the factors I mentioned earlier: toxins, inflammation, infection, even fermentation in your gut. And the remedy here is we're going to cool down that pitta. We're going to cleanse the liver and the blood or nourish the liver and blood. People always mention the word cleansing the liver too much, in my opinion. It's too much of a fat. We need to sometimes nourish the liver or cleanse it, but the remedy is going to be looking at the liver and seeing what's going on, where's that heat coming from. We're going to look to the blood and see what's going on in the blood. Could the heat, that could indicate where that heat is coming from. And 2 herbs that may help are amalaki and bhumi amalaki. Amalaki in general is a cooling herb for the skin, but there are many. So, red or flushed skin could be an internal heat condition, but it could also be a cause could also be blood stagnation. Now, it's a little hard to see in this photo, but in this case, the person doesn't look so much like they have a flaring heat condition. It could just be that their lymphatic system is excuse me, my throat's a little dry, that their lymphatic system is stagnant. And when that happens, if your blood is not moving very well and it's sluggish, then toxins are going to build up from cellular metabolism. Normally, throughout the day, your cells of your body are releasing waste products, and those waste products have to be flushed out. Well, if you have a stagnant lymphatic system, those toxins don't flush out, they build up, and they cause local inflammation, puffiness, and water retention. So this kind of red flushed skin is going to be, the cause is very different from the first kind, which was a more internal heat condition flaring up. In this case, we're going to just use blood movers like turmeric or diuretics like Punarnava and CCFT to just flush things out a little bit. All right, if the skin is pink in general, now this person's pretty sunburned, you can't really see the difference between this skin and this skin, right? But sometimes the skin does not look really as red or angry as this. It just looks a little pink and flushed. In fact, here's some rosy cheeks there that don't look nearly as angry. They just look, but they are a little bit pinkish there. So pink skin can be really healthy skin. It's a sign of strong, healthy circulation at the surface of the skin. But it could also be a sign of inflammation, irritation, or sun damage, right? A sunburn. And if you have a sunburn, you can rub some aloe vera gel on it, or even neem oil topically, which will cool and soothe the irritation. Allergies can also cause that pink color in the skin. If a person's embarrassed or anxious, and in fact in this photo that may be what's happening here, is that the person's cheeks are flushing up because they're embarrassed or anxious. And when a person's blushing, their sympathetic nervous system gets activated, and that causes the blood vessels to dilate. If a person's blushing all the time, they may have easily overstimulated adrenal glands. And of course, you can calm your system down with a little bit of belly breathing. And if you tend to have too much circulation of blood in the skin, or get flushed all the time, try avoiding vasodilator foods like alcohol, black pepper, garlic, cloves, peppermint, etc. These are foods that will dilate your blood vessels. All right, what about pale skin? We've been talking about red skin and pink skin. What about pale skin? Well, each dosha has a pale skin type. Pitta people have fair skin, and that naturally... Now, this is interesting because Pitta people have good, strong circulation to their skin. And so their skin generally has a healthy, rosy glow to it. And I think this photo on the right really characterizes that. She's got a little bit of makeup on, which obscures the photo. That's unfortunate. But just in general, you see that her skin has a brightness to it. It doesn't look dull or lifeless. And that's how we know that there's good, strong circulation to this person's skin. But Pitta people generally have a fairer complexion, and their skin is sensitive. It freckles easily, and it's prone to sunburn. Note that fair skin, by the way, is a little different than pale skin. And when I say pale skin, I'm thinking of skin that is unusually very light and may have some pallor associated with it, that may look a little bit dull. Not this sort of fair skin, is just lighter toned skin that's prone to burn. So when this Pitta fair skin is out of balance, it tends to get red, flushed, and irritated. Now, Vata pale skin is a more true pale skin. You see here that the skin is and this is imbalanced, by the way, imbalanced skin. Not all Vata pale skin is imbalanced, but this person is imbalanced. This seems a little bit anemic here. And the skin just lacks the same degree of vitality as in the previous one, in the previous photo. So if a person has anemia or a blood deficiency, they need to buck up the blood. We need to build the blood. We may need to add some heat too. So weak blood, that's anemic blood, can't really carry oxygen that well. So if we heat it up, it'll move faster, so that will increase the amount of oxygen delivery. So heat can increase oxygen delivery, and also we can build up the blood so that the blood can carry more oxygen too. Some of your blood builders are going to be Chyawanprash, liver, chicken liver or something like that, raisins, molasses, red meat. All good blood builders. And there are many. Sometimes a Vata person has pale skin because the skin is cold from deficiency. So if a person has only a very thin layer of fat, then their skin's going to get cold all the time. And as soon as the skin gets cold, the blood vessels in the surface of the skin are going to constrict. To prevent too much hot blood from getting close to the surface of the skin. Well, because if the hot blood gets to the surface of the skin, then the heat is going to be lost. So thin skin gets cold easily, and cold skin lacks blood flow. And that's going to make the skin pale because there's less blood in the skin. In fact, that explains why in winter your skin is pale and in summer your skin is pink. Because in summer your body tries to get more blood flow to the surface of the skin, and that makes your skin look red, and it helps your body radiate heat. So the remedy for cold skin with poor circulation can be pungent warming spices like turmeric or ginger or black pepper. Now, Kava skin looks very different. Now, Kava skin is cool because Kava people have low metabolism, and that low metabolism makes the skin cool. But in Kava, the skin is thick, not thin. So, yeah, what more do we need to say? If a Kava person wants to brighten up the color of their skin, they're going to need circulatory stimulants like turmeric, cinnamon, and trichatu, and they're going to need vasodilators like tulsi or holy basil and cloves. What about gray skin? Gray skin is skin that is gray and lifeless because there are toxins or ama that's present. And typically, if the skin is very gray looking, it implies that there are toxins from the colon. And that can be due to constipation, for example. And that's why gray skin is usually a Vata condition. And the remedy to freshen up that gray skin is to relieve the constipation with a laxative or any number of techniques, and to cleanse the colon. A good herb for that, by the way, is harataki. Now let's look at blue skin. Now this is an extreme example of blue skin. I have never seen this. This may be like a frostbitten skin, or it could even be that this person was like playing with a magic marker or something. I don't know what's going on with this blue skin. That's that blue. Usually skin is a little bit more subtle than this. It's just a subtle bluish tint, and that's a sign of blood stagnation. The more blood tends to sit and not move, it gets a little bit more blue. Unless there's toxic buildup, and then it'll get inflamed and red again. But if there's not a toxic buildup, blood stagnation makes things look a little bluish tint to it. And you'll see some examples of this throughout your life, I'm sure, of it. And it also implies a bit of coldness. The bluish tint is both blood stagnation and cold quality. And it implies a lack of oxygen to the tissue, because when blood is oxygenated, it's red. When it's deoxygenated, it turns greenish blue. And so a bluish tint to anyone, the tongue or the skin, is a medical condition known as cyanosis. And the remedy for blue colored or tinted skin is to refresh circulation. Improve circulation to the periphery. Periphery just means the skin, by the way, as opposed to, say, your heart is not in the periphery, or your liver is not in the periphery, but your skin is the periphery. So you want to improve circulation with circulatory stimulants like ginger, cardiac stimulants like ginger or trichotillue or cinnamon, diaphoretics like cardamom or mangista, vasodilators like tulsi, cayenne, and cloves, and blood thinners like turmeric or garlic. Wow, look at all these colors, right? We have got a few more colors to go. Orangish skin. Orangish skin can be caused by keratinosis. And that's basically from eating too many orange foods, that contain carotenoids. Like carrots contain carotenoids. So I want to just take a moment here to talk about the easiest consultation I've ever had in my life. Is I had a client that called and said that his skin was orange, and I was like, oh my goodness, I never had a client with orange skin before. This was like my third consultation ever, right? It was my first day of doing consultations, and so it was like one of those first one, two, three people, and I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do with this client who has orange skin? What am I gonna tell him? Well, I asked the client what he eats, and he said, oh, I eat carrots. And I told him, okay, well, stop eating carrots. He was basically only eating carrots, breakfast, lunch and dinner. So sometimes, even though at that time I didn't know about this orangish skin phenomena, I just sat with the client, and lo and behold, we found the cause, and he stopped eating carrots and was soon fine after that. But orangish skin can be mistaken for jaundice, which is a very serious medical condition. Jaundice is a yellow discoloration of the skin caused by intense liver problems. So if you have jaundice, you need to seek medical attention immediately. And it's due to bilirubin, the presence of too much bilirubin in your blood, which is caused by liver problems. All right, so don't mistake jaundice for orangish skin. They're different, okay? And I think we have, we'll talk about jaundice and yellow skin. I knew that was coming up here. It should be next, but it's not. All right, olive skin. Olive skin is healthy, not a problem. It's genetic. I have olive skin from my Italian roots. And I'll note that olive skin is more common in Vata people. Sallow skin. Sallow skin is a little different from olive. I put them right next to each other because they can be confused. Because this skin of this person looks olive, but then you notice that the skin is really just not quite as healthy, right? There's something different about it. So I would call this skin sallow skin. Sallow skin is like slightly yellowish, brownish, greenish
tint to it, and it's dull and lifeless type skin. It's parodied in cartoons. I don't know if you've ever watched a cartoon where the character smokes too many cigars and his face turns green. That's what I'm talking about here, although the effect is not nearly as dramatic as you see in the cartoon. It implies that there are pitta toxins in the liver. This can happen from a person just staring too long at a computer screen. Sometimes I feel like by the end of the day, I have sallow skin. And that's why at the end of every workday, I like to go for a little jog or get out in the sun for a few minutes, do some work around the house, work on my fence in the back, etc. All right. So remedies for sallow skin: cleanse your liver with kaduchi or bhumi amalaki. Support liver health with levotonics like licorice root, applesauce, and coconut oil. Go outdoors, get some sunshine, and avoid consumption or exposure to toxins. And that could be anything from cigars to alcohol to paint fumes. Yellow skin or jaundice, which is a sign of liver distress. I already talked about this a little bit. Anything that hurts your liver can cause jaundice, including things like parasitic infections or hepatitis A, B, or C, etc. And if your liver is very weak, there'll be too much bilirubin in the blood. You'll turn jaundice, and then you have to go to the doctor right away. Don't fool around. Your liver could be in danger. So you address the cause, you cleanse, you nourish and support the liver, and also figure out the cause by going to the doctor.
Next, we're going to talk about skin temperature and what kind of imbalances you can determine from looking at skin temperature. To figure out the temperature of your client's skin, you can ask them, do you feel hot or do you feel cold? And they'll tell you, but the answer they give could be problematic. Why? Because many people will feel cold if their pores are open, yet open pores is a heat sign. In fact, when your body is too hot, one of the ways it releases heat is by opening the pores. And then once your pores are open, or once blood's flowing close to the surface of the skin, you feel cold. Even though if someone touches your skin, they'll say your skin feels hot. And that's why just simply asking your client if they feel hot or cold could be problematic. If you have a license to touch your client's skin, then you could put the back of your hand on their cheek or forehead, or when you're taking your client's pulse, you'll be able to feel the temperature of your skin. And if their skin is really hot, you can ask them, well, do you feel cold or hot? Oftentimes they'll tell you they feel cold if their skin feels hot. And the vice versa is also true. If you notice a client's has thicker Kava skin and you touch their skin and the skin may feel cool, and you ask them, well, do you normally feel hot or cool? Frequently they'll say, oh, I feel hot inside. So the problem there is that they have a lot of internal heat, but they're not able to release it through the skin. And so sometimes simply asking your client if they feel hot or cold is insufficient to determine their true temperature, and you'll need to touch their skin. If you don't have a license to touch your client's skin, then ask them, well, do people tell you that your skin feels hot to the touch, or do they tell you your skin feels cold to the touch? And that can be a way to assess. Of course, you can always assess internal temperature with a thermometer. So another way to determine clients' temperature is by their clothing choices. If the client is wearing very heavy clothing, that suggests they feel cold. And if they're wearing very light clothing, it suggests they're hot. Obviously, this is not always true either, because I've had many clients that feel cold yet wear this very wispy light fabrics, and one of my recommendations to those clients will be to wear heavier clothing. So what about normal skin temperature? Well, normally skin temperature varies, and it varies depending upon the environmental temperature, the body temperature and the health of the skin. So the temperature and your chest area, or the trunk of the body, should be anywhere from 92.3 or 98.4. This is the temperature on the surface of the skin in the trunk. Now, obviously, if you're getting in the armpits and in other areas, it's going to be a little warmer because your body can retain heat in those areas better. But certain people run hot or certain people run cooler. And if people run cooler, that could be Wilson's temperature syndrome, which is just basically another way of saying that they tend to run on a cooler body temperature. And then we can start asking questions. Well, what does that mean? Do they have a low thyroid? What's the cause of that heat or cold? And that's really what we're trying to figure out as practitioners, is what are causes. So if the person's generally hot, it's a sign of high pitta. Pitta types generally run hotter than Vata and Kapha types. Their skin is warm or hot to the touch. Again, they may feel cold, but subjectively. But when you touch their skin, you notice their skin is hot. So when it's people love to cuddle around Pitta people because they're so hot. So a Vata person, they tend to run cold and they want to get some of that Pitta body heat for themselves. So they'll want to snuggle up to someone on a cold winter night who's a Pitta. And so, what are some reasons for that extra heat? It could be due to strong circulation. Pitta people tend to have strong circulation. They tend to have blood vessels dilated, so vasodilation. And there could be, heat could be generated by a number of causes. One of them, high bilirubin levels in the blood can make a person's temperature go up a bit. That would be a sign that the liver is weak. And you'll see signs of yellowing in the skin if that's the case. So inflammation anywhere in the body could cause the skin temperature to rise. Even fever can cause an increase in skin temperature. So, we're going to look at some of those various causes. Cold, there are two types, Kapha and Vata types. Cold, Kapha can come from hypothyroid. In fact, Kapha tends to have a sluggish, slower metabolism. And because of that, they have inadequate blood flow to the skin. We've mentioned that a few times already, that when your skin is cold, your capillary beds constrict in the skin, and that prevents loss of heat, but it also causes inadequate blood flow to the skin. And in this case, you'll see that a Kapha person will have drier skin. And you're like, whoa, wait a second, Kapha isn't dry. Well, they're not systemically dry, but their skin may be dry due to poor blood flow on the surface of the skin. So Kapha people feel cool to the touch, and that could be from poor or sluggish circulation. It could be, as I mentioned before, that some Kapha people can even have a lot of internal heat, but still their skin temperature is cool because they're unable to release it through the skin. That's interesting to see when that happens. All right, Vata types. Cold. Vata cold is going to be a little different from Kapha cold. Kapha cold comes through excess, right? That there's congestion, sluggishness due to an excess. But Vata cold is due to deficiency. They may have weak, deficient blood or not enough nutrients in their system to maintain a strong, good fire. So anemia would be classified under the Vata type cold. And they may have a lack of energy, very thin skin. They may lose their heat quickly because their skin is thin. They don't have a lot of fat. And Vata, if a Vata person is cold, they'll have pale skin that looks either grayish or brownish, and usually a little less pale than Kapha. So when Kapha people have pale skin, it's usually a brighter pale. Or a more whiter, shinier pale. When Vata people have pale skin, it looks a little grayish or brownish, and it's associated with cold. Let's go into a little bit more about that phenomena where the skin is hot to the touch, but the client says they feel cold. There's actually a name for that condition. It's called Sheetapipa in Ayurveda, which means cold pitta, basically. And that's when pitta person feels hot to the touch if you touch them, but they say that they feel cold. If let's go through just a few examples of that. If a person has a fever, but they say that they feel chilled, right, or they catch a chill, that's usually a sign that the fever is increasing. Because as the fever increases, the client feels subjectively cold. So you may have had that happen to you, where your temperature's going up and you feel chilly. An infection that aggravates pitta could be a cause of that underlying heat. If you have a fungal infection somewhere in your body, or a sinus infection, or the general effect of that is going to be increasing heat in your system. If you do a workout in the winter and you break a sweat, then you could catch a chill. Right? What's a sweater? A sweater is something that helps you sweat. You put that on while you're working out, and you'll break a sweat even in the winter. And then when you stop working out and your circulatory system goes back to normal, your heart rate goes back to normal, there's still this sweat on the surface of your skin. And what does sweat do? It cools you down, and that could cause you to catch a chill. So after working out, you want to make sure that you're wearing adequate clothing to retain that heat. So when blood vessels dilate near the surface of the skin, it causes excessive heat loss. A person is radiating that heat even though they feel cold. And so we've talked about this. High levels of bilirubin, etc. Not all vasodilation is bad. Actually, vasodilation is good in the middle of the summer. Your skin vessels close to the surface of the skin will dilate in order to release heat. But vasodilation makes a person sensitive to cold temperatures. In fact, vasodilation on the surface of the skin is known as opening up of the exterior, just to be technical about it. So I had a fungal infection, a tinea infection, which is also called ringworm, although it's not a worm at all. It is a fungus, and tinea. I had a tinea infection from traveling in the tropics that was aggravating my pitta. And I was freezing all the time. And so that was an example of Sheetapipa. And after getting rid of the infection, I was much warmer. It was really over like a 2-day period. Once I had gotten rid of the infection, within like 2 days, I noticed I was much, much warmer. And then I had another infection from tropical traveling, which was blastocystis hominis, and a digestive tract infection. When I got rid of that, then I was no longer sensitive to the cold at all. I mean, of course, if it was very cold, yes, but just my temperature normalized. It became sort of like everyone else. I was no longer more sensitive to the cold than other people. Sometimes the Sheetapipa can go the other way around. That because of exposure to cold, your pitta gets aggravated. And this is this happens when Kapha or Vata are involved, and they increase pitta. So an example of this was my daughter. She had a fever, actually, and we didn't know about it. She didn't mention feeling bad at all. So the whole family, we went out swimming in a cold mountain stream. And then we drove home, and when we got home, I looked at her and I saw that she had broken out into a rash over her entire body. So what happened here? This is a perfect example of Sheetapipa. Here what happened is that her body was trying to increase temperature, but it was exposed to cold, and it overcompensated. In other words, it said like, well, I'm going to really try hard to increase this temperature. And so her fever shot up to 103.4, and she got a rash. And then it calmed down after about 2 hours. So with this idea that the body would overcompensate for heat loss by rapidly trying to increase heat can cause these hives, itching, rashes, burning sensations, etc. And that could provoke this Sheetapipa. So Sheetapipa goes in two directions. You feel cold, but actually your skin is hot to the touch because you're radiating away heat. And the other is cold, causing a heat reaction. Interesting how that works sometimes. All right, so that concludes our discussion on skin temperature. Really very simple. What about moisture levels on the skin? Well, dryness is, let's talk a little bit about dryness and assessing dryness. One, what is dry skin? Well, dry skin is simply skin that lacks moisture, appears flaky, scaly, or cracking. And you can see this example in the photo. Dry skin can also be characterized by fragile skin. It can also be characterized as skin that's prone to wrinkling. The drier skin is, the more easily wrinkled it is. And dry, I should really clarify here that in Ayurveda, moisture doesn't just refer to water, but also to oil. And so a lack of oil or fat in the skin is considered to be a dry sign. And it's that that lack of oil that's going to make the skin prone to wrinkles. And it's the lack of water that'll make it appear, actually water and oil, that will make it appear flaky, scaly, and scaly. So, so moisture includes fluids and oils, especially when you're talking about the skin. Really, in the skin, that you need both. All right. The cause of thin or dry skin could be simply insufficient fat intake. It could be caused by a lack of blood flow to the skin when the skin is cold during the winter, or when the skin is cold due to hypothyroid. And it could also be from an underlying medical condition like dermatitis or eczema. The remedy for dry skin would be rubbing oils over the skin. Here you see someone rubbing oils over the skin on their legs, which is, the legs are an area that typically gets dry because the legs are far from the heart, and so they tend to have poor circulation. So intake of dietary fats like ghee and other fats, coconut oil, and sufficient intake of fats can help make sure that your skin isn't dry, but also massaging your skin with oils, such as sesame oil. Make sure that you're well hydrated. That can help improve the moisture levels in your skin. Add a pinch of mineral salt and a squeeze of lime to your water. The salt will help retain a little bit of water. That can help with dryness. And lime is a vasodilator. So sour taste has the effect of vasodilation. That's going to improve blood flow to the skin and help hydrate your skin. In fact, that's a remedy for hypothyroid, dry skin caused by hypothyroid in a Kapha person. You give them some lemon water, and the lemon water is not only stimulating, which Kapha people like and is good for them, but it also improves blood flow to the skin, and that can help them when they have low thyroid. Sometimes people's skin is clammy. Clammy skin is skin that is wet, damp, or sticky, and it usually feels cold to the touch. And it's most common in the extremities where there's poor circulation. And it can also be a case of shock or sudden low blood pressure. Think about a person who breaks out in a cold sweat because they're afraid. That could come from a panic attack, also even from a heart attack, and it can be a sign of even internal bleeding. Although that, I don't know if you're if that's going to be happening in your sessions with your clients. right there, some of those things. But just so you know that that those are some causes of clammy skin. And a person, though, who has more chronic clammy skin, we're going to be looking at poor circulation as the main cause, or AMA. If a person has fluid accumulations and poor circulation, then and they're a Kapha person, we would think about diuretics like CCFT or Punarnavati as remedies. What about very oily skin? Oily skin comes from an overproduction of sebum in the sebaceous glands, which are located just beneath the skin. And this oil is necessary because it moisturizes and protects the skin. Actually, an oil covering on the skin helps stop evaporation off the skin. It holds on to the fluids. You can actually do this experiment at home and see this effect. If you boil water, you'll notice, and you quickly turn off the heat, you'll notice that the pot of water is steaming. And that is the water evaporating from the pot. Now, if you put some oil in that water, the oil will float to the top and form a coating over the surface of the water. And instantly, you'll see it stops steaming. So when that's a great thing, right? Because it means that you're holding on to moisture and your body's not losing fluids, and also that your body's not getting cold. That's the way your body cools itself down, is through evaporation of sweat. Well, in the winter, if you have a nice thick layer of oil over your skin, then you have less evaporation off your skin, and your skin will actually feel warmer. So this oil moisturizes and protects the skin. In excess, your skin will appear oily. And if you have very oily skin, it could be high pitta, making your skin hot and sweaty, or it could be intake of too many fats, carbs, and sweets. And so think about those as potential causes. A person could have oily skin due to hormones, genetics. So avoid fried, oily, or sweet food. Wash your face daily using gentle natural products, and astringents like witch hazel can help remove excess oil. What about thick skin? Well, there's a saying in English, if a person has thick skin, then that person's not easily upset or offended. And so you're like, oh yeah, that person has a thick skin. You know, they can take a lot of criticism and it doesn't bother them. Well, it's in Ayurveda, we think of the oily quality as making a person hardy and sturdy and not easily upset or offended. A person with plenty of oil will have a sturdier constitution, and they can afford to be a little more stubborn, right, because of that sturdiness. And so having a thick skin is tantamount to having lots of fat in your skin, having lots of oil in your skin. So there's some truth to that saying in English, actually, that if a person has thick skin, then they're less, they may be a sturdier individual in many ways, even psychologically. So overall thickness of the skin varies according to the amount of fat in the skin. That's the thing that we want to first of all start with. So when we're assessing skin thickness, we're really assessing amount of fat in the skin, and the thickness of the skin and the amount of fat in the skin varies by age, gender, skin type, and also diet and lifestyle habits. The thinnest skin is on your eyelid, and that's 0.5 millimeter. And the thickest skin is on the soles of your feet, and that can be up to 4 millimeter in thickness. Obviously, you need more protection on the bottom of your feet. So thickness of the skin could also, in this case, the soles of the feet don't necessarily have more fat in them. They may have a thicker epidermis also, thicker buildup of those skin cells. And you see that you see that in various parts of the body. Like if a person is using tools like a shovel all day, they'll develop calluses on their skin. And that calloused skin is very thick. And it's not fat. It is a buildup of these cells in the epidermis. And that's protective. So two kinds of thick skin due to the buildup in the epidermis or the buildup of fat beneath. All right, if a person has really thick skin due to fat, then they can go outside in the winter with a pair of shorts and not feel cold. Although this picture is a guy in the winter with shorts on, but he actually does look cold. Look at his hands in his pockets there. He doesn't want his hands to get cold. His legs are probably cold too. So put on a pair of pants, guy, right? You need to keep a little warmer than that. The amount of fluids in the skin can also influence thickness. If a person has more water retention, then the skin may be a little thicker too. Well, there's an example of thin skin. You see the skin, you could tell just by the wrinkling in the skin that this is an older person's skin. And as a person ages, their skin gets thinner. And then they feel cold all the time. It's a sign of low ojas when you have thin skin, dehydration. Could be a lack of nourishment also, or some kind of deficiency. And when a person has very thin skin, you can see their veins and arteries and their wrinkles really easily. And here you see that in the person's hand. You can see some of the blood vessels. A remedy for thin skin would be heavier foods in the diet. Lots more fats and ojas building foods, and keeping well hydrated. Also, doing daily self-massage with oils is really good. You can use straight up oils like sesame oil, or you can try one of these herbal oils like ashwagandha bala oil, which is a real ojas building oil, or sesame oil. Here's an example of puffy skin due to fluids and fluid retention. Notice the fist on the left is puffier than the fist on the right. So this is due to stagnation, poor circulation of fluids, or inflammation. And yeah, so that could be caused by ama. It could be caused by thick blood, if a person's blood is too thick because it's too rich and kapha aggravated, or just poor circulation due to the heart problems or any number of problems that could cause water retention in the skin. So you have to examine the cause first. If ama or toxicity is the cause, then detoxicants that flush out toxins out of the body, like triphala, or help burn it up, like Trica-2. If the cause is thick blood, then you want to cut down on heavy rich foods, and a blood thinner like turmeric or garlic can help. If there's poor circulation in general, then a circulatory stimulant like ginger or cinnamon can help.